Right. Hello there, everybody. It's live. It says on the screen, and I've reset everything I can possibly reset. I've reset routers. I've reset laptops. Everything should be fine. And I've said the quiet thing out loud, and I've instantly jinxed it. That's just the way it works. But no, we're here. We've got one or two people who are joining us already in the up in the view account. So hello there, everybody. Welcome along. Thank you very much indeed for being so patient with last week's show as well, because we did have a cancellation, at which point I thought, well, tell you what, I'll just jump on and do a couple of announcements, just cover the news and the bits and pieces of the week. And an hour later, which means whenever I see this meme going around about, oh, yes, if you have a TED talk and you have no preparation at all, can you talk for 18 minutes? 18 minutes? Good Lord. Shut me up, frankly. I think I even came up with a whole bunch of titles of things that I could talk about for 18 minutes. But no, thank you very much indeed for bearing with us with that. We are going to be rescheduling that interview and that conversation, hopefully for Tuesday. So we'll be doing an incidental episode this week. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to this week, actually. This is someone I've been wanting to talk to for a while. So Jendia Gammon is going to be joining us very shortly indeed. As always, if there's any questions, any comments, anything that you want to talk about this week, anything that's spotted in con news, anything that has maybe you were at a con, maybe you were at a con last weekend. Who knows? Tell us what you've been up to. As always, do spread the word and share the updates. I know that there were one or two bits and pieces, especially when it came to MCM that's been announced, or MCM last is this week. Yeah, hopefully it's been a really exciting MCM, actually, considering what we were talking about last week, where it was a little bit spacey when it comes to news and updates. There's been a couple of things that have been announced out of MCM, which was rather cool. Good to have that happen. But of course, anything you want to talk about on the show, it's all about you and your show. Please do let us know if there's anything you want to get on today's agenda. But no, looking forward to this one. It's going to be a packed show because heaven knows our guest today spins a fair few plates. So it's good to have someone who's got a lot to talk about and lots of, hopefully, some live stuff to talk about because heaven knows the news coming out of Jendia Gammon is fast and furious. We'll get after that after this. Right. Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name's Len Sultana, and each and every Sunday we talk Comic-Cons, con culture, and all the stuff and nonsense we get to enjoy at such shows. Welcome to you. Yes, a couple of apologies. If anything, for anybody who decided to want to go to Lawless in Bristol this weekend and expected to see this ugly mug up on a panel stage somewhere. Yes, unfortunately, I was unable to make it to Lawless this week, but from what I've been told, it was quite an exciting show. So if you did go to Bristol, I mean, we've got Into the Blue Mister, who's joining us. Hello there. How the devil are you? Hello, everyone. Putting my books away after Lawless in Bristol. Maybe a glass of wine first. Let us know what you got to see, because what Sue was putting together for this year's show was really exciting. There was lots of things happening. So, yeah, do let us know what you got up to, what you saw, any highlights. Yes, good to see some really exciting panel guests on that. And I'm gutted that I wasn't able to make it. If you went to MCM, let us know what happened with that. Do jump in with anything that you got up to this weekend. Of course, the chat is open. So if there's anything you want to put to my guest today, or if there's anything you want to talk about, that's all about you. But for the next 45 minutes to an hour, we've got a lot to get into, especially when it comes to my guest for this week. Really excited to talk to and introduce somebody who, quite frankly, if I'm going to go through the bio as listed on her website, because if I don't, I'm going to miss something. That's the thing. It's just, I mean, there's just so much stuff that Jendia has done. Hello there, Jendia. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Jendia Gammon is a Nebula and BSFA Awards finalist author of fantasy, science fiction, horror novels, and short stories. Current finalist for the Nebula Award for In at the Amethyst Lantern as Dianne Dotson, which is how I originally knew you, as it were, on social media. That's how I think I was introduced to your work. Jendia writes compelling characters within the witch world building. Jendia's campy horror novel Doomflower publishes in April 8th, 2025. First thriller novel with horror and sci-fi elements, Atacama, publishes May 13th. Jendia is also editor-in-chief of a new speculative fiction publishing house with details of what's coming. It goes on. My word, it just keeps going. It's impressive to know and see how many hats you do wear and how you keep yourself busy. So it's a pleasure to have you on to talk about all sorts of bits and pieces, especially when it comes to con culture, because you're going to be busy in July generally, because you've got your new this new imprint that you're publishing.
Right.
But you're also going to be paneling at San Diego Comic-Con as well.
Right.
So, yeah, I think we'll start there, if anything. So, yeah, how did that experience go? How did a panel come about at San Diego?
So I have been on panels with a rotating group of authors for a few years now, and occasionally I'll get asked back by some of the members of those panels. That's what happened in this case. So I can't announce exactly when it is and who all is on it yet, but I can tell you what it is. This panel will be, it's called It All Starts With a Word. So it's a writing panel with other writers from various backgrounds. I'm very excited to be part of that. So it should be fun.
I was wondering if it was actually going to be not only talking about the art and craft of writing, and so like I'm guessing from the title, starting off that process of staring at a blank page and kick-starting the ideas on page. But is it also going to be a panel about the imprint? Is it? Are you going to be spinning a couple of things when it comes to that panel?
Yes, because when I'm introduced, and if I have any opportunity to talk about it, I was going to slip in a little bit about the imprint, because the week prior to Comic-Con is when we're launching the website, the name of the book, the name of the imprint, everything will go live a week prior to Comic-Con so that I can talk about it at the con and potentially even have maybe some swag related to it. I don't know, but it should be quite fun. And that won't be the main focus of what I talk about, but it will be something I hope to mention.
Okay. So, I mean, I usually start with 3 questions. So we'll start with those. Question number one, do you have a brew to hand? It is a cup of tea when Englishman is Sandy. Do you have a brew to hand? Sunday morning?
I've had my tea and coffee already today. I usually have coffee first, and then a couple of hours later, I'll have second breakfast and some tea with that. So I've had both.
Fair enough. The second one is about your con experiences. We were talking briefly before we came on air about your first San Diego Comic-Con. Was that, we'll talk, what was your first comic convention? We'll go just convention generally.
Oh.
What was the first convention that you went to?
Oh my goodness. Let me think about that. It's been a long time ago. I think my first official Comic-Con was Emerald City Comic-Con, because I lived in Seattle for several years. And that would have been, I think, when I had basically a baby, my first child. So that's been, 18 years, like about 17 years ago. So that was before Emerald City Comic-Con really kind of blew up and became something bigger. So it was a more intimate little con at the time. So I think that was my first Well, I say that, and I've been to some smaller things, like to zine conventions and things like that in the Bay Area. But that was my first official Comic-Con.
Okay. And the question I did used to have the question, which was is there anybody that you've met at a convention which has made you go a little bit weak at the knees and go a little bit fangirl and just sort of like stunned that you're actually getting to stand in front of someone, an idol or a contemporary?
I really enjoyed seeing Gail Simone, my first Comic-Con at San Diego Comic-Con. That is my first San Diego Comic-Con. I got in line and got a comic signed, Batgirl, and that was in 2019. And she was just as lovely and as fun as I thought she would be. So that was great fun. I met Lalo Alcaraz, and I met several artists I love and adore, because I'm an artist too, and I'm always supportive of other artists. So it was a lot of fun to meet those folks.
Excellent. I think my first experience in front of Gail Simone was Wales Comic Con, and it was at that point it wasn't really kind of embracing comic artists and writers. So she was just kind of sat there looking very sort of, if not nonplussed, very cute, confused as why she was there. So I think she was very grateful that I was actually able to go over and know who she was. Excellent. And great answers. So when it comes to a convention then, because I have in recent weeks kind of replaced that third question with this one, and it's relevant to what I want to talk about when it comes to your experience as going to a convention as a writer. The question has been replaced: where do you find yourself, or where is your kind of natural home when it comes to a comic convention? Where, if you were, when you're going to San Diego, where would we usually find you?
Artist Alley, for sure. Yeah, because I'm an artist too, and also because I know so many now. I know a lot more artists as well as comic book writers than I did, 5 years ago. So that's where I gravitate, and I go say hi to everyone, and I grab, buy whatever I can. I get into trouble in Artist Alley financially without fail. So if one of my teens is with me, like last year, then we go look at the collectible action figures and things like Transformers together. But usually, I have to focus on Artist Alley every time.
I mean, you're married to British author Gareth L. Powell. Do you make Comic-Con a family affair, or because when I go with mine, because San Diego Comic-Con 2010 was actually our honeymoon. It was our first. It was honestly, it was going to be a one and done affair. It was just going to be, it was striking off the bucket list, and we just carried on going. But it seems to, certainly that first year, and it's just been the thing ever since, which is we just kind of land in San Diego, we say hello to everybody, we say goodbye to each other, and we just disappear off in different directions, and we don't see each other again either towards the end of the day or even on Sunday evening. So do you go and enjoy the con together, or do you barely see each other when you go?
It's changed because before I went to my first San Diego Comic-Con in 2019, I had gone to WonderCon, and I was on a panel then with Cory Doctorow. That was my first panel ever, so I got thrown in the deep end real fast. But I had my family with me then, and they were younger, so they were there with their dad, and then the four of us kind of just went all over the place, but together because they were too young to be alone. But last year, my older teen took off. I was like, I've got to go do these panels, and they were like, all right, bye. So met up with them later. So, yeah.
Do you, when it comes to panels, because you've been to con as a panel guest, what was that like in terms of nerves, in terms of having, how much kind of bandwidth did that have in your head when you were attending?
They've been fun, whether or not they were virtual or in person. I've been on a few in the past few years. And last year I was on two. I was on how to write psychologically rich characters for one. And then I literally had to actually run to get to the next panel. I'd leave the one early and get to the next one. It was a Star Wars Andor panel. So that one was probably the largest panel I've been part of since Star Wars Celebration, which I had been on a panel there too a couple of years ago. So that that was a big packed room talking about Andor, and it was a lot of fun. And I don't really get tripped up anymore. I'm sort of just used to it and just jumping in. It's always when the questions get asked by the moderator, if we don't know what the questions are, there's always a moment where you're like listening to other people and going, what is my answer? Sometimes I'll be like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to say. And other times I'm like, I better figure this out pretty fast. And that, in a way, that feels like a game show.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm like, what's the answer? But that's kind of silly. Other than that, I love being part of fandom and talking about these wonderful things. It just feels like a dream.
I think my first panel, I was the third guest on a panel of 3. So while it was great to go, I know exactly what I'm going to say, is when those 2 said it first.
Oh yeah, that's always frustrating.
That's always fun. That's always fun. This one you're organized. Oh, it's a panel that you've submitted and you've put forward. Is this your first one that you've submitted?
I didn't submit this. It's someone else did. I've not submitted a Comic-Con panel.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I've been a guest.
So are you a guest on this panel?
Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay. Because
the
way I read it, I thought you'd actually put this one together.
No, I put the Nebula last year. I was at the Nebula conference, and I did organize a panel there based on an article that I wrote called "The Ecology of World Building." So it had me and Ray Naylor and some other authors who have science backgrounds, and we had a really good panel on that at the Nebula conference last year. That's the only one I've ever organized at a convention myself. So.
And what was that experience like?
It was great. We had some extraordinary questions regarding what, we talked about what ecology is and isn't and how you can apply it to different forms of genre fiction. And I had a lot of fun. I always have the most fun with the horror option because we're talking apex predators and like who's the predator, who's the prey. Sometimes the predator is the human. Sometimes the prey is the human, things like that. We had a lot of fun with that. It was a really attentive crowd. The people who come to the Nebula conference come to learn writing. It's all about writing science fiction, fantasy, horror, all of speculative fiction under that envelope, and it's just a really rewarding audience with great questions. And some of them are, brilliant questions.
Yeah. I was about to say something, and I don't want to preempt, and I don't want to guess which room you're in, but when I started going back to San Diego Comic-Con, I was a volunteer staff, and I helped in room 2, which is a how-to room, and that's very much about the mechanics of writing art, the absolute nuts and bolts of something. And I saw Jonathan Mabry on stage, kind of breaking down a scene and doing a really good job of kind of explaining that to you. So I understand that when you go to a con, it's to a very receptive audience.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting that to and fro and getting that those from the audience. Like you say, you got some great questions from the audience. Was there any kind of questions which kind of made you surprised at just how perceptive and how receptive the audience were?
I mean, I think they all are. I'm always amazed and delighted to listen to the questions from the audience, whether or not it's about Star Wars or ecology or psychologically rich characters. Whatever panel I'm working on, I've always just been really thrilled to be in the moment and hearing the attentiveness and the appreciation by the audience for those of us who, are on the panel. It's been really rewarding. There hasn't been a standout I couldn't remember over the years. I've been on a lot of virtual panels since 2020, as you can imagine. So I don't remember like any one particular statement, but are always surprising and interesting questions.
Excellent. And I think a question, certainly when it comes to cons as a writer, I mean, things we were kind of talking about this briefly before we came on air. I go to cons. I do go to a number of the pop culture panels and see some of the flashy stars. That's fine. Go to see the artists doing what they do behind a table, crafting away, sketching, doing commissions, etc. I'm really curious what it's like for a writer, especially when doors open at 9-10 o'clock in the morning. The floor is through till sort of 5-6 o'clock. So it's a good solid day of being sat behind a table. When you're a creative that's got some physical things to show in terms of art or that kind of thing, that's one thing. As a writer, I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, the running joke I always know is someone going up to a table and goes, "Okay, write something for me." It's all like, is there a commission page? Is it price per page? Who knows? What do you do as a writer at a con? Certainly when it comes to behind a table.
You know, I haven't had a table at a convention in a long time. I was at some smaller conventions that I had, you know, a table with my books. For example, I was at the LA Times Festival of Books, so it's not entirely true, but it's a little bit different scene because it's outdoors and people are walking by. It's not entirely different though, because you're trying to sell a book, right? And that was last month. So, so when I'm on a panel, I'm not at a table. It's different. It's a very different thing. And I've never had a table at one of the largest cons selling books. I know it's physically exhausting to do that. And you have to have a buddy to kind of take over so you can take a break. I can't imagine how crazy it would be at Comic-Con to have a table or booth. I'm always in awe of everyone who's there all day, every day selling their stuff. I don't know what that's like at a big con. So the only thing that I've ever experienced is that sometimes there will be a distinct signing area after a panel is over and the authors can go to that area and people can bring their books to sign. But that's been kind of rare for me. It hasn't, like at WonderCon 5 years ago, I had that. But, you know, my panels last year were too late in the evening. So everybody selling books was shutting down at that point. So I didn't get selling books. So, you know, it is what it is. You just take it as it comes. It's just a very different feeling to be on a panel versus to be at a table. You know, it's a totally different ballgame.
Sure. I can imagine as well for a writer at a con, it's kind of like three distinct worlds. You'd like to say that time on the floor, meeting fans, paneling, and sort of attending those sessions, but also then networking. And because I think a lot of people do sometimes forget that certainly convention, it's a trade convention in some ways. It's about networking. It's about meeting as many people as you can. Do you find that you get the chance to do that? Is it something that is
no?
You do actually pencil into your
I've never had time to do that, and I can't imagine. You know, for one thing, it's not, I'd have to stay overnight. I'd have to arrange a whole thing, you know, and I had to do that last year. I'll have to do it again this year for one night. But I just find that it's just too time consuming, and it's really hard to find, in my experience, the kind of people I'd want to talk to, because the people I would talk to would be editors at publishing houses, and they're just not that big of a presence at Comic-Con for that. That would be something more like London Book Fair or, you know, a book-centered conference than Comic-Con. I know there's a few people there, but they're kind of slammed. They're selling, you know, they're at their booth selling books, and there's just not that much presence in book publishing at Comic-Con. It is mostly comics and games and toys and art, you know. And
do you think it's something that could be developed more at something like San Diego or New York, or a pop culture? At the end of the day, it's pop culture. It's absolutely under the umbrella. So do you think it's something that could be or should be developed at
New York makes sense because that's the headquarters of publishing, you know, and I would love for that to happen. I don't know to what extent it does. I've never been to New York Comic-Con, but I know that, you know, New York is kind of where it's at when it comes to books. It's New York and London are the two that come to mind. So yeah, I know that I'm friends with so many comic writers, and they absolutely get a lot of deals. And, you know, there's BarCon and all that. A lot of deals get made at Comic-Con.
Oh, when I said the three elements, I think there should have been that fourth one as well, BarCon. The social element of it.
It's just not, I'm not writing comics. Like, I've written one comic page ever that's a web comic that P.J. Holden illustrated the last year. So it's just, I'd love to write comics, but, you know, like everything that I do is just, San Diego Comic-Con is, the writing side is, the panel side is the best I can do with that for networking. And it's just really, it's kind of challenging. Like, you don't have much time to talk to your panel buddies, right? You're on to the next one, or you have to leave or whatever. So you get maybe 3 minutes to chat with them, and then you're all buy, you know, and it's out. So it's a little challenging as an author of long form fiction, but it's still worth it because there are plenty of book lovers at San Diego Comic-Con and at the larger cons. And I do wish there was more emphasis on books there, on long form books. But, you know, I don't know how, like, publishing is in a fluctuation mode right now. And I don't know long term what they'll invest in terms of a presence at conventions.
Oh, wow. Okay. That sounded a bit ominous. I mean,
it's an interesting time in publishing. It's a very interesting time. It's a lot of changes.
I mean, also, I'm really curious about sort of what the focus of when people come to see you at cons. Is it a case of people who are really excited about your upcoming projects, or is it people that are really sort of wanting to celebrate the work, the body of work that you've done in the past? Because I mean, you've got this amazing book, In at the Amethyst Lantern, which congratulations on your finalist place for Nebula Awards. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So is it a case of, I mean, where is your brain when it comes to cons? Are you looking at the books that you've got down the line, you wanting to share that with people, or is it people who are like, no, I want to talk about your older books, please?
Well, at comic conventions, it's usually a topic related to characters, and so I can talk about multiple works and how different characters interact, or how I write novels or versus short stories, because I do both. So it's mostly about process, and it's almost never about an individual book. And I've not really come across, unless it's an interview, you know, about the book, you know, and that's usually virtual. I've had a lot of virtual interviews about particular books, but I've never on a Comic-Con panel talked about just a book. So people are not there to talk about a particular title. You know, it's like, I'm not there yet. You know, I'm not like Sarah J. Maas or anything like that. And I probably will never be. So that's a whole other level of author fandom. And I think people probably come to hear me talk about process as much as anything, and maybe glean what's coming down the line for me, that sort of stuff.
Well, that's the next thing then, because I mean, when you say people talking to you about process, I think people will be talking to you about imprints and publishing and pulling together some incredible talent for this imprint that you've got coming. You can't, I can imagine, speak too much about it because you've got everything kind of like building up towards July, but you've got, like I say, a fantastic roster of talent that you've gathered for this particular collection, and a couple of usual suspects, Anthony Johnson in there when it comes to just whenever there's the word talented writer, his name always crops up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got some fantastic people just all clamoring. At which point is this kind of like a final roster so far? Because I do know that we've got an announcement that you are making today, and I think this was the most recent one. This is Peter McLean that was announced earlier on this week.
Yesterday, and then today we announced a pretty major one. So
excellent stuff. What does it take to bring these kind of names together? Are these just very close friends that are aligned with your sensibilities, or is it a case of we want to do something new? There's something that we feel that we want to bring to the anthology and sci-fi and fiction market. What's the kind of that phone call like when you're kind of pulling that kind of talent together?
We wanted to expand genre, and we wanted to, you know, join people together in something quite special to debut our imprint. And that is this cross-genre anthology, because our publishing imprint will publish science fiction, fantasy, horror, as well as mystery, novels, novellas, novelettes, and graphic novels eventually. So I wanted to pull from the different genre folks that I know or that I have admired. Some of them are our friends. It's an interesting range, and I'll list who I've announced so far. Today, I announced Adrian Tchaikovsky. So, multi-award winning science fiction and fantasy author, he's written over 50 novels, and it's, you know, an amazing rock star in genre fiction for sure. And then the roster is just stellar across the board. We've got Cynthia Pelayo, we have Ai Zhang, we have Paul Cornell from Doctor Who, Bonnie Burton, David Quantick, an Emmy winner, Eugen Bacon, Peter McLean, Ren Hutchings, Renan Bernardo, Greg Van Eekhout, Pedro Iniguez, Jonathan Mayberry, Dennis K. Crosby, D.K. Stone, Cavan Scott of Star Wars writing, Sarah L.
I didn't see Colin's name on there. Ah, right, okay.
Sarah L. Miles, J.L. Warad, Anthony Johnston, Mia Duong, Helen Glenn Jones, Alice James, Con Wong, and Callie Wallace. Announced so far. This coming week, we have another set of people to announce, and we're coming close to the end of it. We invited several people, some of whom either never responded or aren't sure yet, but they have until the end of August after Worldcon is over to get us stories. So we may yet be announcing people down the line. So there's still some invitations out. We'll see what happens. And I'm just incredibly proud and honored to be editing these stories. We've already received several, even though they're not due until August. We've already received and edited and paid out contracts for several of the stories. So it's starting to look like a real book. The cover artist has sent me 2 drafts, and I think we're almost there with the cover, which will debut with a professional website, you know, fully operational website being designed by a good web team who knows how to do this. And once that goes live, you know, like right now we're crowdfunding on my Ko-fi or Ko-fi, however you pronounce it, account to try to get this upfront money to get all these things funded. And then once we get a little farther along in the funding, I probably will start an official Kickstarter, you know, via Kickstarter.com after everybody's announced and we have the assets, the digital assets so we can show what the book looks like in the various formats so that we can show the authors all in one place and talk about, it'll have the same tiers that the Ko-fi has right now, but it'll just be a more visual thing and hopefully get a bigger reach, you know, with Kickstarter later.
Okay. Like I said, when you're saying you're wanting to bring something special and something new, did you have a kind of pitch that you wanted to put to these creatives and these writers to kind of set your stall about what you wanted the imprint to be? I mean, what are you wanting to make special about this anthology? I mean, what is the appeal of an anthology in 2024?
Well, given that it ranges with 4 generations so far of authors, so you have, you know, the Boomer generation, Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z author in this anthology so far, I wanted to capture this moment in which cross-genre fiction is very powerful, that we are expanding genre, that it is not being limited to one thing. So I have given these authors a choice. You can write in any of them in particular, or you can blend them. We do have a theme, and I will announce that when the website goes live. So I'm keeping a little bit under wraps, but we pitched with the theme. We pitched with the idea that this kickstarts our imprint and is representative of the kinds of books that we will be publishing. We also wanted to emphasize human-made writing and human-made cover art. And so that is part of the contract, is that you will use no AI in the development of your story. So, and, you know, who knows what's coming down the line, you know, in terms of technology as things advance and how this will all interplay. But for now, we wanted to capture just a really unique group of writers, some of whom have been around for a while and have many awards, some of whom are having their debuts this year in traditional publishing, some of whom are independent self-published writers, some of whom have only done short stories, you know, and so we're pulling them all together because they're all great writers and they all belong on the writing stage. And we want people to know that, you know, this is an opportunity to help advance some writers who, you know, are entering the global stage, and then also to appreciate the writers that have been legacy writers for decades, you know. And so it's a work of pride and genre appreciation and giving these writers an opportunity to tell a unique story that, you know, is special for this book. You know, it's been a really wonderful thing to do. You know, I pitched it as being, you know, here's the word count, here's the pay is good. And here's the deadline, here's what we're wanting to do. This is why. And for the most part, there are people that either I've worked with on some level or I've interviewed, because I've interviewed several authors over the years, or that I know personally, that we've been, some of them are part of debut groups in the past couple of years, because I was part of some debut group for 2023, 2022, that sort of, so like Ren Hutchings and Con Wong are part of those groups, and we all know each other from there. I'm part of other writer groups and sort of been pulling threads. Like I was part of the San Diego writing community and now the LA one. So you'll see a heavily SoCal aspect on one side and a heavy British and UK side on another. But we also have global writers. We have people from Australia, from Brazil, from all over the world. So it's just been it's a rich, and wonderful experience to just bring everyone together, because it's kind of what I would do in real life. Sure. If I could. I'm the kind of person that likes to hold little soirees and invite people so that they get to know each other and make connections. So that's another aspect of this, is the sort of community building, building within and building out. Sure.
I mean, when it comes to putting this together, it's yourself and Gareth. Was it a case, has there been any kind of conversations where you've just kind of, not so much butted heads, but where you've just kind of had a discussion? Because obviously when there's three people, there's somebody to break a tie, which is always handy. But when you've got the two of you, has there been conversations where you've just gone, not sure about that, or what's been the conversations with Gareth like when putting this together?
It's been a lot of fun, and we went through and we made this sort of wish list of people that we'd love to have, and then we kept adding to it. We're like, oh, maybe this would be a good fit. It's sort of like a puzzle we're putting together. And we haven't really butted heads over anything. We work well because, I do I'm editor in chief. He's managing editor.
Oh, so right. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't too sure who's wearing what hats. Okay.
Right. So this is an offshoot of a production company we formed. And this is the first offshoot of it, is a publishing imprint. We hope to have other kinds of offshoots from the production company. I am in LA, it's kind of what we do here. So we hope to have other forms of media one day, but one thing at a time. I wanted to get the books out. So I will, read the stories, and I'm the one that gives the pitch. I'm the one that does the first pass read, and then I send it to him, see what he thinks. We go back and forth with edits, and we send it back to the writer, and whatever, we make decisions from there. Some writers have said, well, here's a couple, which one do you want? We make a decision on that. It's not really, we've never really had any difficulty. We work well together. We don't think exactly alike, but we work in complement. So, and he's got, we both collectively have interesting backgrounds, that did not involve writing, before we got into writing, because we both kind of came, we've both been writing our whole lives, but as a career, we both entered it a little bit late in the publishing world. So we have this perspective of decades and offering different vantage points. And so I think that's a strength that, we're coming at this from multiple angles, and we've both worked in aspects of publishing and writing in different fields for years. And it's just, there's never a moment where we feel any friction there. It's just about how can we make this better,
Perfect. Sounds like the ideal setup. And you do have, the pair of you have got this a great body of work behind you. So that's naturally going to be an appeal, certainly for anyone who's wanting to join the roster. But you're known online. So when you've been putting the word out about this, the imprint, I can imagine that there's also been people that have reached out to you. How much interest have you had in that regard?
A lot. This is the first anthology is invite only. And the reason is because we want to make sure it's a success so that future anthologies can have an open call. And, we wanted names that are well-known as well as up and coming. And this is sort of just to get everything figured out, because this is the first book of many. This is the first anthology of many. We'll also have standalone novels. And the themes that I've already got planned for future anthologies are extremely fun. And I think a lot of people will want to be part of each one, depending on their interest in writing. And this one, you know, we've had so many people ask, oh, how do I get on board? And I'm like, well, unfortunately, this one's invite only, but we want this one to be a success so that the others have a window so that you can send something at that time, but don't send us anything now. Don't send us any pitches. We'll delete them. We just are not taking submissions right now, and we won't be until at least next year. So.
All right. Okay. And it does sound like this is something that you're absolutely looking at a long shelf life. And with this initial batch of talent, I mean, it's certainly starting off so incredibly strong. You're talking format of books as in print. Is it going to stay purely as a print format, or are you thinking online? Are you thinking what formats are you thinking?
For now, we would be doing ebook, paperback, hardback. We would like at some point to partner with someone to make a few exclusive hardbacks, which are quite fancy for collectors. We're kind of playing with that one in the background, but for the most part, we would stick with the main three formats. Love eventually to have audio, and so we, you know, if this succeeds, then we hope to hire a narrator for that down the line. In terms of other content on the website, I have sort of bandied about in my mind of having articles and things like that that we could have guest writers do, and that could be a form of, you know, nonfiction, but talking about genre, for example. And so that's something I'm toying with, and I don't know if we're going to do that or not, but it is something that I've thought about, and we will see. So.
Okay.
One thing at a time.
One thing at a time.
It would be nice because we both write articles. I'm a science writer, but I also write occasionally, you know, things for like Science Fiction Writers Association and other outlets about genre as well. So it would be really fun, I think, to have that sort of thing on the site and, you know, pay a writer, you know, to write that article.
I mean, the one thing I'm really excited about is the fact that you're talking about you really like the idea of going cross genre, that multi-hyphenate when it comes to the pitches. So, I mean, I like the idea of picking up this book and not really knowing where the book is going to go. I mean, I can imagine it's almost kind of like join the dots and kind of go from that to that to that. It sounds really exciting, and I think that's the reason why I wanted to get you on to talk about it.
Yeah.
Also, just getting the word out as well, because the way that I learned about it, and I think the way that most people have, is social media. And promoting this, obviously appearing at things like Comic-Con and doing panels and whatever, but getting the word out. What is promo like in 2024? I mean, you talk about a shift in the landscape when it comes to publishing. Is that shift applying to promo as well, and getting the word out about a project like this?
It's challenging because there are so many fantastic opportunities to crowdfund different projects. And I took some inspiration from Errand Nothingness Press that I have a short story in an upcoming anthology for. And I spoke to Todd, who's the head of that small press, and we've had really good discussions about how he's done things over the decades. And he had, you know, a few friends of mine have had really successful anthology Kickstarters, Lou Anders being another, and I was part of Tales from Stolke's Hall in his Thrones and Bones RPG universe. So I've been talking to different people about how they go about it, and it's been an interesting experience to see the levels of success. Everybody gets a little freaked out, no matter how many times they've done the Kickstarter, that you have this. It's sort of like a distribution where it's like, you know, you start out a lot of excitement and you get an initial crush, and then there's this doldrum, and then toward the end of it, you know, you get an upsweep again. And that's probably what will happen when we do launch an official Kickstarter. But meanwhile, I've posted the link for the Ko-Fi donation part, where you can read down through and see what the tiers are and what to do. You know, so publishing is changing quickly because technology is changing quickly, and the way that readers are consuming books is also changing, and how they share their love for books is also changing. You see things like Book Talk and Bookstagram and other channels sharing the love of books that has really altered the way a lot of booksellers are selling books now. You know, everybody wants the big book talk hit. And I don't think that's sustainable, because social media is like a mayfly. They come and they go, and you can't count on them. So my goal is to diversify across a lot of channels. Of course, social media is the obvious and cheapest and easiest thing to do, but being on the ground and being at a book festival is valuable. And so I will be doing probably a lot of that over the next couple of years, being at various trade, conventions for different kinds of publishing. It's not as much the fan stuff or the pop culture, but the nuts and bolts, because there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I don't talk about, that I also am operating, as we get this on going forward, the things that you have to do to run a business, the expenses behind the scenes of, having an actual honest to God website built for you by pros, which is extremely expensive, but that's a one-time thing and you're done. And then after that, it's easy. But to get it done right, you don't have to do it again, right? So you get your money's worth in that regard. It is, get what you pay for. So there's a lot of facets to it that social media, of course, is helpful. And we are getting that word out that way. But any channel in which we can use, for example, YouTube is kind of that intersection of broadcast and social media. So it's sort of perfect to talk about what we're doing and what we need and things like that. So it's very helpful. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. Any
chance, anytime. Thank you. I think the reason why I bring it up is because it's something that, I've used the word bandwidth already today, but I think I'll use it again, because you talk about the investment in creating the website, but the investment of time and your own personal time to, so like going to social media. I've migrated from Twitter or X to Threads, and that's where I've seen a lot of what you're doing promoting this imprint,
right.
Which has been the kind of the platform that's gotten the most bang for your buck, as it were.
Oh gosh, that's a good question, because they all are changing and the algorithms change constantly, and you just never know what's going to take off.
We talk about AI as well, and how that's going to kind of mess with people's algorithms and how they kind of get the words out.
It's frustrating. Like currently, Twitter, I feel like anything that goes on there vanishes pretty quickly. The algorithm is so bizarre right now that, if you don't pay for verification, you don't get seen. And I don't like that. I'm not going to pay for verification for any reason. It's just not an investment I want to make. So, because I don't think it has returns. I tried it briefly, like late 2022, before things changed. And it just went nowhere. I was like, forget this. So I just disconnected it. And I've tried it on Instagram, same deal, didn't do anything for me. So I think just being consistent and being out there, being present is as important as anything. Taking advantage of new social media like Threads. I've had decent success on Threads. I have a big following there. But again, the algorithm keeps changing, and it's a very new app, and they keep tweaking it. So you have to I'm a social media manager, not just for this, but for another job that I do related to science writing. And it's a lot to kind of keep on top of the dynamics of changing social media. I do think that the Fediverse will become priceless. And so, Mastodon is kind of a weird space, but the idea of not having a centralized social media is probably, the future is federation. So as Threads becomes more integrated in the Fediverse and things like that, it'll reach millions of people, but they're just not quite ready for prime time. It's just a dance. It's a constant dance trying to figure this out. When we throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, and then you think you've got that figured out, and then it changes again. So like every content creator I know in art, food, writing, movies, everything is saying the same thing, which is, we don't know. We have no idea.
I think that's the reason why I brought it up, because for any creative in any field, it's proving so difficult at the moment. Twitter was a relatively ideal space. It kind of did what it needed to do. And people came along, and there was a kind of a space for people to promote themselves, and there was an audience to see it.
Right. It was good.
Now there's nowhere to find. I think Threads is probably the best we've got at the moment. Blue Sky, I know that you've just recently followed me on Blue Sky. Thank you very much indeed for that. But that I'm finding very much to be creatives talking to other creatives.
Right.
So there's an audience. So I'm finding it really interesting for the platforms that writers, artists, creators have nowadays. And I'm finding that Kickstarters and crowdfunding, creating their own audience, as it were, seems to be a way that people are kind of meditating towards.
So, and that, you know, it's going to be interesting to see, because I've never run an actual true Kickstarter, but at least I know people who have, and listening to their experiences has been a little bit anxiety inducing, because it gets pretty stressful, you know, because if you don't make the money by a certain time, you lose it all. And that's one reason we didn't want to do that starting out, because we needed the money to pay our authors. So every donation that comes in is going directly back out to the authors as they, you know, we contract their story. So, regarding, I do think that there is a space for Kickstarter to be successful in connecting creatives and their work, but it's not something that I'm experienced with yet. I will be in a couple of months. And so we'll see how that goes. You know, once that goes live in late July, you know, it's going to be very interesting.
I can imagine. I mean, I think the reason, and the other reason why I bring it up is obviously I want Comic-Con to be a great marketplace for all creators, for certainly establishing that one-to-one, which I think is the most vital connection when it comes to developing an audience.
Yes,
you're getting a very much an emotional investment in the work and in the creators involved. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing you at San Diego Comic-Con and seeing what you bring to the floor. I mean, like I say, you've got this. Will we possibly see a panel for this imprint at some point down the line? Because heaven knows, to have this bunch on a table. Number one, it'd have to be a bloody long table, but number two, I think just the amount of talent on that stage will be something to see. Is that something that you'd like to? I mean, like I say, I actually thought that was possibly what the panel was going to be. Is that something you'd like to do?
Down the line, it would be nice. You know, we hope with the book launch, I'm talking to a PR person about. She works on both sides of the pond. You know, so. And she's worked with some of the big names. She is recommending that we have events related, you know, on both sides. And so I'm looking at having several of the Southern California writers at a Southern California book launch in February 2025. Gareth could maybe take the helm on the British writers that could come to an event over there. I've spoken to a bookseller over there as well. So we'll see. It would be great to have them on some sort of virtual panel, because they're all over the world and there's no way they could all be in the same place at the same time. And that's just the way it is. Because, you know, even with the Nebula Awards, like there's people all over the world and we can't really sync up because of time zones. They can't be here, you know, visa requirements being what they are. It's very challenging. And so I think it's unrealistic that we could all get in the same room. But that being said, I'm going to be at StokerCon next weekend, and a lot of the people are traveling from the UK and from other parts of the country who are either have already been announced or will be. And I'm going to try to get a group picture of those of us who are there, that are part of the anthology. So that'll be fun.
Well, you know, now's the time then. Now's the chance for you to kind of do a little bit of horn blowing about things you've got coming down the line. Like I say, that event, San Diego, which we've talked about. What else have you got planned, certainly for the next 3-4 months? What have you got coming down the line?
Well, the Nebula Awards are the gravity well. So that happens in just under 2 weeks. Nebula Awards ceremony is June 8th. And I have 2 panels.
When did the knots start developing for that, by the way?
Huh?
When do the knots start developing for that?
Well, I can talk a little bit about the phone call. That's when it started. So that was a trip. I wasn't expecting this nomination at all. The thing about the Nebulas is it's not fan-based, it's your peers. And, you know, I got to know several people in SFWA last year when I was at the Nebula conference on my panel. And I've been a part of Science Fiction Writers Association for years now. And, you know, my traditional debuts, The Shadow Galaxy and The End of the Amethyst Lantern, got BSFA nominated. And The End of the Amethyst Lantern has BSFA, Nebula, and one other thing it's nominated for that I can't talk about. So I don't know if I'll be shortlisted for that one, but it'd be pretty amazing if it is. At any rate, I got longlisted and I'm stoked. So eventually I'll talk about that one and how much it means to me. But this is very meaningful. You know, so many of my favorite writers have had Nebula awards or nominations over the decades. And it's a great honor to be a finalist. And this is for younger fiction, the Andre Norton Nebula Award. It is a nebula, it is a true nebula. And now it's, you know, it's separating it out from the regular novels that are adult fiction. So it was a really strange and surreal thing to get an email saying, I need to talk to you about something. And you panic. You're like, what'd I do? Oh my God, what's this? And I was like, wait, why do you need to talk to me on the phone? Can't you just email me whatever it is? Whoa. You know, I don't do the phone. So I'm like, they were like, well, normally we like to tell people this over the phone. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. And I call them and they were like, congratulations, you are Nebula finalist. And I'm like, what? And then my brain shuts down. And so
wow.
I was barely awake. It was early in the morning and I hadn't had my coffee and I had picked up my kid the night before at like 3 a.m. from a field trip. So I was destroyed. And I was like listening to this like an out of body experience, like, what? And so then I'm talking to the guy for like an hour and we have a good conversation. And he said, here's what you can expect. Here's what's coming. It's still not quite sinking in because I had just found out about the BSFA nominations, which I got 2. I got one for a short story for Copper and Intrazone as Jendia Gammon, and then Lantern as Dotson, like days before. So I was tripping, right? And we had just gone out to celebrate that because Gareth was in town. And so then I go upstairs and I nudge him and I said, hey. And I was like, you ever been awakened by a Nebula nominee before? And he goes, no. I said, we are now. So,
excellent.
That was a trip. And so that was just the beginning of a lot of communication back and forth between the conference and also in between the other finalists and I, and we all feel the same. We feel like we've won. It doesn't matter like whether we win the actual award, we won. Like this is amazing stuff. And it's a great honor. And that's all I can really say. Like the gratitude is just amazing. So we're all very excited. All the nominees are a little nervous and a little excited. And then very much can't wait to see those of us who will be in person. Can't wait to see each other again or for the first time in real life. It's a lot of fun. So, you know, and it's just really cool. It's so cool. But in addition to that, so down the line, you know about Comic-Con. That's all I have scheduled for this year. Right. But I have next year in February, we will do the launch for this anthology. In April 2025, my book Doomflower, which is a campy horror novel with a romantic aspect. It's very savage. It arrives via Encyclopocalypse Publications. And then in May 2025, Atacama, my thriller sci-fi horror novel, which is very much a Black Mirror X-Files thing, comes out via Slay House Publishing. So I've got boom, boom, boom. You know, it's a big front-loaded year in terms of books. I have short stories coming out in multiple anthologies this year. So I don't have a gap year in publishing. So I've already been in one called All Tomorrow's Futures, Fictions That Disrupt. And then the next one coming is the Air and Nothingness Press one, which is Moving Across the Landscape in Search of an Idea is the name of the title.
Nice.
And it's hilarious because like the concept is that we all write an enormously long story title. And then we have 1,000 words total limit to the story, but we have footnotes throughout it. And so I picked this ridiculous sort of Douglas Adams sort of satire sci-fi story. And I wrote that and, you know, it got accepted. So it's pretty cool. And I've got some really interesting companions with me on that table of contents, which is kind of fascinating. So that one comes out.
You have me at Douglas Adams, frankly.
I know. It's so ridiculous. And it's a very different tone from the other stories, apparently. But it's probably the most comedic thing I've ever had published. And then Tales of Slay House, which is like the horror anthology, is coming out at Halloween. So I have a horror story in that called Protista. And I don't know what else will happen the rest of the year, but that's what's going on. So
okay, I'm stunned that I've managed to get you on for 50 minutes to talk about talk about this because Good grief! I mean, like when I said in my thread that you're a busy bee. I wasn't kidding, everybody. This is what I'm on about. This is fantastic. Well, I mean, I'm going to let you get off and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much indeed for coming on and talking about this anthology. Like I say, there's so much more. I mean, I've been showing up the images of the talent that you've got on board so far. How many more spaces have you got, as it were? I mean, are you pretty much where you are or where you want to be right now, or have you got more spaces to come?
There are more spaces. There will be an announcement tomorrow, every day through this coming week, I think, except Friday. And then we're still waiting to hear back from a few people to see if they're interested. But there's definitely another cohort coming, sci-fi writer, some horror writers, an urban fantasy writer. So stay tuned. Every day this coming week, I'll have an announcement.
Excellent.
We're close to the final table contents. We're close.
The final picture, the picture of what you're wanting to put together.
Right.
That's great. Well, I mean, we've been talking about Threads. That is the address that you can find Jendia on. Threads.net @ Jendia Gammon if you want to find out about what's coming down the line. That's where is it? I think we've been saying that you've been posting on most platforms to get the most amount of reach, but certainly that's where you're posting as well. And of course, not only can you find out about more updates as well, but you can also contribute to the war chest, as it were, at kofi.com/Jendia Gammon. Those any other places or any ones that you'd like to highlight as for people to find out more about?
My website, the book page of my website would be good. I can send that in the chat as well. I'm sending you the actual imprint information link in the private chat, and then I will provide my website.
Well, I mean, what I can do, if that's okay, I can actually just share the page. Yes, the page is looking a little bit like that. So if you want to go to jendiagammon.com, and of course there's all sorts of links.
Yeah, so that my books have a page there, and I have a blog
on there as well. Excellent stuff. So yes, I'm really excited to see what's coming down the line. Very excited to see you in San Diego. I hope I get the chance to attend the panel. If I find that, because I've got a panel which I am organizing, so I've submitted for a panel and that's been accepted. You've got two of your writers which are on my panel. If they happen to be on at the same time, this is going to be a dust-up between me and you as we start fighting for them. So just to let you know, no, but Paul Cornell and Kevin Scott are coming on my panel. I'm going to talk about that in the next part of the show. But Jendia, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. And I wish you all the very best for this imprint, for yourself and Gareth. Yeah, all the very best to you. I really hope looking forward to seeing what happens with it.
Thank you.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much indeed for coming on. Take care. So there you go. Jendia Gammon, everybody. It's exciting stuff. I mean, I really liked the idea of the multi-hyphenate as well, the idea of stretching genre and really kind of testing the boundaries of what a story can be and what you're expecting from it. So no, that sounds cool. It sounds fun. And no, do follow for all the updates. Certainly on the Threads account. That's pretty much where I've been keeping up to date with what's happening. Although that Kevin Scott news dropped a little bit like a bombshell. I didn't know about that, so that's cool. But no, do follow, and I'm looking forward to finding out the title, finding out the broad details about the anthology, and yeah, looking forward to finding out more, especially at San Diego Comic-Con when Jendia will be making her appearance. Excellent stuff indeed. Right. A couple of things I would usually do at the back end of a show is my comic book of the week or my comic of the week. I haven't been able to go to my comic book shop for about 5 weeks now. My pull list must be huge at this point. I am going next weekend. So by the next week's show, I should have at least a couple to share with you. Although that be said, I may still be reading a whole bunch of them because, like I say, it's going to be quite a pile when I get to my comic book shop. to attend. However, what I can do is the other thing that I do on my the back end of the show, which is the social of the week. I try to highlight people on social media, especially on Threads, with less than 3,000 followers, to kind of say, no, this person or this individual or this group deserves more of an audience. So let's start spreading the word. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. This is somebody who I believe has only just gotten themselves settled on Threads. But Robert, also known as Legion of Sand, who a number of you may know as a contributor to the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog, has gotten themselves a Threads page. They are somebody who I've been a big admirer of for quite some time, if anything, because Robert absolutely knows what he's talking about. He's as much a fan as anybody, and he just is very in depth about what he covers. He is somebody who really kind of dives into the weeds of stuff. He kind of really tears it apart and really helps. Certainly, first-time attendees, so anybody that's going to a con for the first time or wants to know a little bit more of the lay of the land of something, always brings great reports back as well. I am a massive fan of what Robert does, so please do follow Legion of Sand on threads.net. Yes, lots of fun, and yes, already some great photos coming in from their time at Phoenix Fan Fusion as well. So yeah, only 234 followers. Let's do something about that if you don't mind. So let's get some more bodies onto that particular site if you don't mind. Right, the other things I want to quickly talk about today, we have ourselves the third wave of Comic-Con guests that have been announced for San Diego Comic-Con this year. We've got some names. This is kind of following a very much the theme of what we were expecting or what we got from the. I'm not going to say nebulous, but they are very the great talents, of course they are, but they may not be the big headliners. And I'm waiting to see when some real. I mean, we've got one or two here, obviously, which are well known within their fields, but certainly not on the mainstream. So I'm waiting to find. Waiting for that first drop of a real kind of like what I would call a proper headliner. But all of them so far are just absolute talents. We've got ourselves Liz Klimo, who's a cartoonist, animator, and author. Worked on The Simpsons, worked on her own books as well, publishing 17 in the US, including Rory the Dinosaur and Lobster is the Best Medicine. I've actually read The Little World of Liz Klimo. I'm a fan. Knows what great writer, author. So no, looking forward to hopefully seeing her on a panel of some description. Joe Duffy, rating comics writer, the likes of Catwoman, Batman, Wolverine, Elvira, Defenders, Punisher, and Star Wars, as well as the English language edition of Akira. You don't get a better resume than that when it comes to San Diego Comic-Con. Patrick O'Donnell, who's a comic strip writer of Mutts, celebrating its 30th anniversary with Charles Schultz calling it one of the best comics strips of all time. Christopher Paloni is going to be is the man who's behind the world of Eragon and the Fractalverse in writing terms. Certainly one of the biggest names we've had announced so far. Dan Sanat, who is the creator of books like The Adventures of Beagle, Are We There Yet? And After the Fall, books for young people, and creator of books like The Replacement. And then, right at the bottom, might as well rep the Brits. We have ourselves Brian Talbot, who is a multiple award winner, a man who, if you ever get the opportunity to be in the room with Brian Talbot, he will tell you all about himself quite happily. He is one of the best self-promoters I've ever met. But heaven knows he's got the talent to back it up as well. Adventures of Luther Arkwright, of course, Sandman, Judge Dredd, Alice in Sunderland. Yeah, the man is just an absolute legend. inducted into the Will Eisner Hall of Fame at this year's Comic-Con. So he will be in attendance, I can imagine, at San Diego this year, if anything, because number one, he's a special guest, so they're definitely going to give him the hotel room. But I can imagine he'll get a pint or two bought for him at in the Indigo Ballroom on the Friday. So Brian Talbot inducted into the Will Eisner Hall of Fame at this year's Comic-Con. And I think that's about it for me. We are at 7 minutes past. We're over the hour, so we'll wrap it up now. I think the only other things that we've got is a couple of people who jumped in. It's a shame we didn't have many people wanting to talk about Jendia and her work, but I think it was good to just hear from her own lips about what she's getting up to. But Andrew English has been to London MCM, and he says he has about 2,000 worth of photos to work on, so about 500 to finish. Looking forward to getting those shared. We'll put those up on the various socials, of course, if you do want to follow Andrew's work. He knows how to take a picture. He's got an eye as that man. So yeah, looking forward to seeing those, Andrew. And Into the Blue Mister has come to Lawless, or come back from Lawless, which was at Bristol this weekend. Lawless highlights the incredible art exhibition and also going through Brian Bolland's portfolio of original art for sale. Oh, man. And I missed this. I missed this show. Jesus. Included Frank Whiteley and Bill Sienkiewicz pieces. It was amazing. Fool! But there we go. Unfortunately, it was the stars did not align. So there we go. And Into the Blue Mister. Let's see what we're saying here. We're probably talking 6 figures going to buy it all. Yeah, I can understand and appreciate that. It'd be worth it as well, wouldn't it? To stick something like that on your wall. Okay. Right, let's wrap things up then with my announcement, because we've been talking about panels with Jendia. She's got herself a panel which it all starts with a word. So that's a writing panel that she's doing with Kevin Scott, and Paul Cornell is going to be appearing on that panel. Those two are going to be appearing on another panel, which I can announce the title of. I can't announce anything else just yet, because I'm still putting the ducks in a row, but I submitted for a San Diego Comic-Con panel and I got one. It is the British Invasion Part 2, the second advancement. It is celebrating that period of time when the Brits were invited to contribute to the mainstream American comic market, and in doing so flip the table and change the landscape forever. From the likes of Neil Gaiman, from Alan Moore, it's just a Grant Morrison, Frank Whiteley. We're talking a roster of talent that just certainly from the mid 1980s, they just changed the landscape of American comics. Now, the part one was about very much about the that period of time. Although Paul Levitz did manage to come along and say, no, you need to look at more context. So I'm going to do my best to certainly explore a little bit more of that, but also I'm going to do my best to look at the impact and the legacy of that period, and where in 2024 the British invasion not only is built on the shoulders of those giants, but continues to barrel on. I am inviting as many as I can. I'm still reaching out and waiting for confirmation for more people to appear on the table with me. I'm still trying to get in contact with a couple of big heavy hitters from that period of the mid 1980s, but we'll see what happens. I'm also wanting to integrate a couple of video interviews, which I'll be doing as well over the course of the next 6-8 weeks or so, because yeah, San Diego Comic-Con is going to creep up with us. But there we go. I did submit for 2 panels, but I think it speaks volumes that VR and comics are something that people don't obviously want to hear about. So yes, that panel did get dismissed, but at least I've got the one, and I'm really looking forward to it. The British Invasion Part 2, the second advancement. We're going to talk about that over the course of the next month and a half, and I'll be announcing more as we get closer to San Diego Comic-Con. Can't tell you the room, can't tell you the day, can't tell you the time, but at least that's a panel that you may be wanting to go and see if you are attending San Diego Comic-Con this year. If not for me, which who the hell wanted to rock up to see this face? Certainly my panelists, I think we're going to put on a bit of a show for you for 45 minutes to 45 to 50 minutes talking about the British invasion, spirit of 1986. So that's my news. Thank you very much indeed to Jendia for coming on and talk about her imprint and about what she's got coming down the line. Thanks to everybody who's jumped in on the comments. Thanks for everyone who's watched. Of course, please do like, subscribe, spread the word about what we get up to on this particular show, because at the end of the day, each and every Sunday, we talk about comics and Comic-Cons. So we want to spread the word. There was a fantastic comics live stream, which I'm going to be spreading the word about on mine, because I want to rewatch some of it, which was a charity fundraising with the likes of Chris from they did it. Oh, good grief! From Comic Tropes. That's where I was going. You had Drake as well. You had some major players when it came to comics and comics criticism online and YouTubers. So I'm going to be spreading the word about that, and you can find out about that, of course, by heading to my threads, which I'll be sharing more about that particular live stream at Englishman SDCC, of course. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Do take care. And for us in the UK and anybody else who's around the world and celebrating a bank holiday, enjoy the rest of your long weekend. And I will see you on Tuesday, fingers crossed, where we'll be bringing our incidental episode, a little bit of a bonus interview, which I'm going to be hosting. Same time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. So hopefully you can join me for that. And for next week's episode of Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. Mine's just about to go cold, so I'm going to finish it off now. Enjoy your weekend, enjoy your week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.